Mr. Game, good morning to you and welcome to the Happy Morning Show.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. I'm very well, sir. Mr. Game, discussions around cola started a few months ago. And in fact, I want to know your position on the demand that public sector workers are making. Should government bend their backs and give them cola now more that they are demanding, or government can find an alternative way of meeting the demands that they are making?
Thank you. I don't have a position, I have a view.
Very well.
And so my views will be made known if you want me to continue.
Very well, sir.
Yeah. The point of view here is that the workers didn't start asking for the cola today. Government should have been proactive in getting them together to discuss the details of what they can do and what they cannot do. They have delayed too much, and but it's still better than none. They should engage them to enable them to discuss other options that are available. What else could government do if they cannot give cola? Because when you give cola, it will take money to pay it, and it's very expensive. Now, if you don't pay it, what are the risks involved? What can be done about it? That is what should be of concern to everybody, and that is what it is.
Mr. Game, you have been at the heart of some of these labor unrests for some time, and you know the dynamics around some of these negotiations. As we speak, government is broke, and government is going to the IMF for balance of payment support. The demands of the public sector workers has come in at a time that many believe their demands are a bit insensitive, considering the plight of government. Do you see government being able to meet these demands, especially looking at the economic situation or their financial position? Can government meet these demands? And if government fails to meet the demands, does it mean that the public sector should grind to a halt?
Thank you. Well, even if they break their back to meet the demand, the consequences and the risk involved is too expensive for the nation. It will set us back for some 5 years, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, there should be other alternatives to cushion the effect of these concerns that they have. They have a legitimate concern. The suffering is very true. It's not just people feeling that they must have for more money into their pocket. It's real. But what can be done to cushion them? Are there other alternatives? As you said in your decision, the risk involved in paying the 20%, assuming they can afford to pay it, is extremely very high. It will carry us some 5 years ahead and create problem for everybody.
Mr. Game, this cola that we are talking about, let's go back into history. Has there been a time where government has been in this position and has actually paid cola to teachers or to public sector workers because of economic conditions?
Not only the public people.
Yeah.
It even extended to some private people. 1984. Indeed, I'm at 84, 83, 84. We had a terrible fire disaster in this country. Almost all the farms got wiped off. There was no food. That's the period we used to call it Rawlings change.
Okay.
Everybody was going lean in the country. And Nigerians had earlier sacked our people, about 1 million people, back into this country. That contributed to the collapse of Black Star Line because they had to send the ships to go and be picking people from Nigeria to and fro without paying a peso to them, and it contributed to their collapse. And in addition to that, we had the same IMF, World Bank, and other international people not dealing with Ghana because of the revolution at the time. Inflation had gone up to about 120-something%. You know, and things were very rough in the country. I myself, I was a trade union. We led a delegation to Accra, and we negotiated, and COLA was paid to us. The advance forward collective agreement to be negotiated. That brought about wage opener clause into collective agreements in 1984. So it's not a new thing. It's the approach.
Okay.
It's the approach that is being given to it, that as if we don't mind, as if the state. Fortunately, we have now a constitution. The directive principles of state policy is very clear as to how to manage these things. Our Labor Act section 113 tells how they should go about these things. So if they are unable to go about it well, that one is the concern of the state. But if they want to have as many as possible to participate in helping finding a solution, we are available, we can be of help.
Mr. Game, before we bring the conversation to an end, some have argued that we are in an era where there should be burden sharing. And for that matter, I mean, when COVID came, when we had the issue with COVID, government still paid teachers despite the fact that they were not in the classroom teaching. Government is cash-strapped at the moment, and so teachers should also make some sacrifices to help government get out of the woods. Wouldn't it be fair to say that teachers should at least make sacrifices and that their demands are a bit insensitive at this particular point in time?
Well, there are two different things. The COVID period, whatever government the state gave out, it's legitimate on their part to do that. What we need to do is to get the state actors to give us leadership. Asking the people to suffer, and some may die, some cannot have their children alive anymore after these crunching difficulties we are going through. I guarantee you it may not sound legitimate in the ears of people today. So there are two different things. What happened during the early days of the COVID was different. What is happening today is different. So I think that we should bear with them. Is there any other way? If I were to be the Minister of Employment and Labor Relations and Minister of Fire and the state for that matter, there are other options that can be deployed instead of paying COLA to do that one. I know it for sure. And so it's up to them to think through it.
Mr. Game, what options would you suggest?
Lesser evil if we can use the tax threshold system to put money in the pocket of every sufferer in this country than going to borrow money and pay further interest on it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Game, for joining me on the show this morning, and we appreciate your
welcome.
contribution.